I was just testing you. This is session number 9 in our 10 sessions dealing with meditation, spirituality, and of course spiritual development. And today we will begin to take a look at what it looks like when we are able to go inside. We hear so much talk about the necessity of going within. We hear about the existence of higher levels of consciousness. And so we should say a little bit about that. Before we do that, I'm reminded of a little story. So let's start with a story. And it begins with Clifford deciding to stop on his way home to take a look at the Grand Canyon. He'd heard so much about the Grand Canyon, its beauty, how awesome it is, etc. So as Clifford leans against a railing to get a better panoramic view of the canyon, fate would have it that the railing broke. And old Clifford fell over that, screaming, howling, and kicking. And about halfway down, as destiny would have it, he got caught up in a limb of a tree that had grew from the outside of the mountain, from the inside of the mountain. So he's clenching onto these branches, dangling, looking above, seeing no possibility of recapturing that grass. Absolutely none. No way to swing into the mountain, no way to do anything other than simply sit there clinging on that branch. And Clifford looks down into what looks to be an endless abyss, recognizing that if he should lose his grip on this branch, that he will plunge into oblivion and be crushed at the bottom of the canyon. Terror now sets in. Clifford realizes that his faith is doomed. Can't hang here all day. Sooner or later, his grip will become too weak to cling up, and he will plunge to certain oblivion. And in that moment of realization, Clifford cries out, "God, please help me." And to Clifford's amazement, God said, "Okay, let go." Look down again, tremble. He looked back up and said, "Is there anybody else up there?" We laugh because we are the Clifford in the story. We all turn to God in those moments when we have encountered our inability to control life. When we discover the fact that we have no control over this thing called life. And just as Clifford is filled with terror upon that realization, we are often filled with terror. And then we begin to call upon the Lord in the form of joining a religion, reading books, and all these other things. And of course, the Lord requires that we surrender. And so we all have that same problem. We cannot surrender. We cannot let go. Because I fear that if we let go, we will perish. And so we begin the spiritual journey in this same situation. Now we come to these meetings and we come to satsangs and all of these other things, and we want all that these mystics, saints, and sages says is available to us. But you can't let go. You can't let go of your preconceived notions. You can't let go of your associations. You are so attached to this. We are attached to that. And so we can't let go. And because we can't let go, very often we cannot make any spiritual progress. You cannot make spiritual progress if you don't let go. This letting go is what forms the foundation of all authentic spiritual practices. Yet this letting go is a death-like experience. This letting go is a movement into the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen. True. But one must surrender within the context of this unknown consequence. And this is where the journey begins for all of us. Meditation is the ultimate act of letting go. Meditation is the ultimate surrender. Meditation is moving into a state where you let God into your life. You drop your opinions. You drop your preferences. You drop your attachments. You drop your knowledge. You drop all of this stuff. You let go. So naturally then, meditation is difficult. But it is the only way. So this is the problem that we all are confronted with. Today, let us talk about what happens when you let go. Because perhaps that will motivate you a little bit to let go of what it is that you cling to, that is preventing you really from receiving the help of God. And in the process of talking about the journey within that we all say that we want to embark upon, we will also simultaneously have to talk about the role of the living master. It is not a subject we've discussed in great detail. But since we're coming to some kind of closure on these workshops, something has to be said about that. Because you cannot separate the two phenomena. You cannot talk about going within without simultaneously talking about the role of the living master. You see, it begins even on the first encounter with the teachings. The master begins to teach us in the form of these discourses and lectures and the form of their books and things. Because the ideal is that they're trying somehow to convince us that there is an experience available to consciousness higher than the one you're having at this physical level. And it is difficult because how do they convince you with words of the reality that what you're clinging to here is not the end and be all? That there's an infinity of higher experiences available to you. But we cling because all the little pleasure you have ever known has been at this level. So the first task that the master has is to somehow to persuade you to leave the first level. We're going to be talking about levels. The first level of conscious experience is available on the level that we call Pinda. Pinda means the physical level of conscious experience. And at this physical level of conscious experience, we are having the experience of some pleasure in spite of the dukkha that besails all of us. Still, we are having enough experience of pleasure to cling to this level. And we do not want to let it go. The mystic tries to convince us through their discourses, try to somehow seduce us, to bait us, if you will, and say, please let go, move further, this is not it. But this experience available to human consciousness, even at the level of Pinda, is so immense that we can't possibly conceive that there is an experience available to consciousness beyond this. You just cannot believe that. You cannot conceive it. It sounds fantastic to you. It sounds mythological to you. It sounds like a stretch of the imagination. There can't be anything greater than this experience that is available at the level of Pinda. Look at all this food I can eat, all this sex I can have, all these cars I can own, all this fame I can acquire, all this wealth I can accumulate. There can't be anything beyond this. And if it is, I don't want it. I want this. I don't want to go any further. I don't want any higher conscious experience. I am content with the experience that is available at this level, at this Pinda level. And we cling to this Pinda level of experience, you see. And it becomes very difficult for these saints and sages and mystics and masters and gurus and reddis and tzaddik, or whatever you want to call them, to somehow convince us that this is not the end of conscious human experience. You think you have made it up. When you arrive up out of these deeper, lower levels, the Sasuti and the Swapna, back into this wakeful level of consciousness, now you can't imagine for the life of you that there's any conscious experience higher than this. And any pleasures greater than the pleasures available on this plane of consciousness. And this is true of all of us, with no exception. This is why your meditation is so difficult. You can't... it requires Herculean discipline for you to get up and do your meditation. It's a task. This is hard for you because you have to give up something. Oh, I got to give up. I can't sleep. Oh, I'm resting so good. It becomes difficult for you to mold your life according to the teachings of the saints and masters because you can't give this stuff up. You can't give up your me. What would life be like without me? Your mind can conceive of existence like that. What would it be like without my random sex, my indiscriminate sex? You can't, your mind rebels, it rebels at that. I ain't giving this up. You begin to edit the teachings. You take out of the teachings those things that you say, oh, nowhere in the world. We all do that. We all do that. And so the first difficulty then is to begin to at least shape our life according to the teachings of the saints. That is the first stage of spiritual development. You have not even gone within yet. The first stage of spiritual development occurs right here in this world, at this very level of consciousness. And as a result of the teachings taking their effect, when the teachings have settled in, when you have finally understood the teachings, when finally the teacher, the guru, the master has been successful and somehow miraculously with just words transforming your mindset, then for the first time at this level of Pinda, the first form of spiritual progress occurs within the context of developing the ability to have the experiences of love, of beauty. For the first time, that faculty is open in you that can have the experience of gratitude. You don't feel grateful at all. You don't feel grateful for waking up this morning. You don't feel grateful for this very moment in time. You feel no gratitude. You have not made enough spiritual progress even to feel gratitude. You take everything for granted. Everything. The teaching, just hearing the teachings and then reflecting on the teachings and understanding the teachings will generate enough spiritual progress at this level to make available to you a higher conscious experience even at this level in Pinda. More beauty, you see. Negativity starts falling away. You see. The sunshine becomes brighter. Flowers smell more aromatic. You can hear music again. Gratitude develops. Gratefulness. You can appreciate things now. You see? Life again becomes mystery, doesn't it? It becomes exciting. Boredom drops out. These are signs of making spiritual progress. More compassion is born in you. You see? These are signs of making spiritual progress at this first level, the level of Pinda. We have not yet started going in. We're making progress in this world. And that's how you know you're making progress in this world. If you are reading and going to all these lectures and reading all these books and you're not becoming more tender-hearted, you have not started yet making any progress. You have not started yet to be transformed. If you are not feeling more contentment, if you're not feeling less of the fires of greed and lust and anger, if you're still hopelessly under the control of your egos, if you're still trying to perpetuate your ego mythology, then you still have not yet made even sufficient progress at the Pinda level to even seriously consider making higher progress. So I wanted today for us to be a little clear about what happens when we make this journey with them. Actually, I shouldn't say journey because it gives the impression that you're going somewhere physically. But actually, there is no going anywhere physically occurring when we talk about moving into higher levels of consciousness. To move into higher levels of consciousness, by that, I simply mean that we become capable of having higher and deeper conscious experience. So we're going to talk about the different degrees of conscious experience. You're familiar with conscious experience only at this level. There are deeper degrees, higher degrees of conscious experience than at this physical level. And the way of accessing those deeper and higher degrees of conscious experience lies through the route called meditation. That is why meditation has been given so much emphasis. We talked about the methodology. We talked about the mystic methodology in some of the previous sessions. We talked about the necessity of withdrawing attention from the outside world, withdrawing it off of the physical body. When we're able to begin to withdraw our attention off of this physical body, we are beginning this journey into higher and deeper degrees of conscious experience. And the withdrawal of attention. Remember, all experience comes because of your attention. Attention is that component in consciousness that picks up experience. That's all it is. So by the shifting of the focus of our attention, we're actually able to deepen the degree of our conscious experience. Are you with me on this? Today we'll be a little technical, okay? Sometimes that's not so bad, right? What happens when we begin to withdraw, shift the focus of our attention from this physical body? Well, you will begin to undergo the identical experience that you will undergo at the time of death. Identical. The only exception is that when through meditation we die consciously while living. We mean by that the body is still maintained at a level of existence. It still is sustained, minimum. There's still that silver cord that connects you with the body to allow you re-entrance into the body. But apart from that, the identical of the withdrawal of attention to the third eye center is identical to the experience of death. Hence, it's so terrifying for most of us. One of the problems is that when we are able to have a little success in the withdrawal of attention from this physical body, the terror, the fear that we will die usually shut us down and overwhelm us. Meditation becomes frightening because it feels like you're dying. Right, you are dying. What happens at death? Fundamental. Attention begins to withdraw from this body, beginning with the extremities. The feet, the hands, it begins to withdraw. And in meditation, the same thing. When one sits in meditation and sits here in the head, and focus one's seat of attention here in the head, behind these eyes, between the two eyebrows, shutting out the experience of the external environment in which the body is positioned, and then finally beginning to shut down even the experience of the body. It begins with the loss of awareness of feet. Your feet fall out of the field of your awareness. You don't even know you got any feet. And then slowly the hands fall out your field of awareness. And now you don't have any hands. And when this attention is pulled in up to the waist, you actually lose the experience of being physically sitting on the floor. And you begin to feel as if you levitated. You begin to feel as if you float. It's a little scary at first. And as we are able to continually withdraw the attention out of this body, back up into the head. Because this is what happens in death. Same exact experience. When a person is dying, they lose first the awareness of their extremities. They lose then the awareness beneath the waist. Right? They're still conscious. They're still talking. And then when the attention makes it up to the throat, you see? To the chakra in the throat. Now this feels just like that. You feel like you're about to die. You are dying. And if the mystic is not there to encourage us, no, keep going, you will stop. No one will go beyond that point. Because the reality, you see, is all of us are afraid of dying. Oh, you may talk big after reading a few books and leaving a few satsangs. I hear you all your big talk about death and sickness and how you're not afraid of this. All bullshit. All bullshit. You're afraid, you will be terrified of dying. And unless the guru is there to console, to assist us, none of us will go. And when you go into meditation and you're able to have some success in the withdrawal of your attention off of this body, up to the throat center, you will actually start having the experience of death. You will start dying. Bringing the attention up here, you begin to see a flood of light inside. It looks to be way off in the distance. People who die talk about seeing the light in the distance, moving toward the light. That experience is identical to the experience that you have in meditation when you are able to withdraw your attention here to the throat chakra. You begin to see the light. You begin to come closer and closer to this apentur called the third eye that opens up into the inner worlds, into the next degree of conscious experience. And then finally, when all of the attention is sitting in the head, when you are unconscious of the body, when the whole body beneath the head has fallen out of awareness, a strange thing happens. Suddenly you see yourself sitting there. It's an amazing experience. You actually see yourself hovering over your physical body, which is sitting there in meditation. It's a strange experience. And you begin to realize for the first time that, my God, I really am not the body. How could I possibly have been thinking that I was the body? You begin to find out that the body is not me. That the body is an experience that I have. It is not me. The experiencer that you thought was in your body, that was sitting in this body, that was processing all the experiences that are coming into you via your sensory systems of perception. Your feeling that this experiencer was located somewhere in this body was an illusion. The experiencer is not even in the body. The body is in the experiencer. And you begin to have this experience when you are able to now move to the next level, the astral level, as it is often called. We call it Sahans Da koala. The 1,000-petal lotus. Won't go into all of this esoteric stuff. It is enough to know that the next degree of conscious experience available to each and every one of us, beyond this level of pendulum, beyond this wakeful level of consciousness, is the so-called astral degree of conscious experience. And what it's like to have this astral degree of conscious experience is very different. Your whole experience of time and space is altered. As one is able to access deeper and higher degrees of conscious experience, you will note that the experience of time, space, and reality shifts with each deepening degree of conscious experience. At the astral level of conscious experience, you discover, for instance, that you can freeze time. It's an amazing thing. You can actually freeze a segment of time. You can hold time. If there is a particular experience that you are enjoying and you like to hold on to it a little while, no problem. You freeze it intentionally. And you can stay within the context of that pleasant experience as long as you like. It's an amazing thing. It is an amazing thing. Your time experience shifts. Because time is a subjective experience. Time is not an objective experience. Even at the level of pendant, time is not an objective experience. If you, for instance, are enjoying this lecture, it will fly right by. If the lecture is boring you, it'll feel like, damn, this Bhagwan, he just goes on talking and talking. Won't he hurry up? He's been talking for hours and days. But if you are enjoying this satsang, then this time will go by like nothing. Time is a subjective experience. You see, it is subjective. And at this level, you are able to really see that. Not only is it subjective, you can control it. You can hold it. Even the experience of reality that you are having at the pendant level of consciousness via the sensory systems of perception becomes radically altered. At this degree of conscious experience, when we are using our power to see, we can't see anything with these eyes unless there is light. Right? If we shut the light off in this room, you can't see anything. You see? So the capacity to see at the pendant level of consciousness requires light. But at the astral level, you discover something that's amazing. They can cut all this light off in this room and you can still see the person just as clearly as you are seeing now. Strange. What you begin to discover at the astral degree of consciousness is that every object generates its own light. Hence, we talk about lights. We talk about luminosity. You begin to see the innate and intrinsic light of all objects, and you see things by virtue of the innate luminosity of everything. Strange. We have now a technology that allows fighter pilots and other people to see at nighttime. And what they are seeing is the heat is there. They are able to actually see the electromagnetic field that is emanating from everything. Heat, everything generates heat. Heat is light. And through technology they develop these cameras and all these other fancy things that enable you to look through that and see the individual. You can see it pitch black night now with the help of these apparatus. At the astral level of consciousness, you don't need any apparatus. You simply can see. It's a very different experience. Space is even experienced different. See, if I wanted to know what's going on in this room here at this level of consciousness, I have to go through that door and look. At the astral level, you're able to move through walls. Strange. It's a very, very different experience. And the most amazing thing you find out, for those of you who are on this spiritual path and thinking of how rare enlightenment is, you begin to find out that when you hit the astral level, when you have attained the astral degree of consciousness, you discover that there's been far more people who have become enlightened than have not. The vast majority of beings at this level, above pendulum level, are enlightened. At the pendulum level, you're a minority in terms of the enlightenment experience. That there's far more souls who are enlightened than there are who are unenlightened. Strange. At this level, in this physical degree of consciousness, we're thinking, oh, a Buddha here, a Mahavira there, a Muhammad there, a person there, just a handful. No. At the astral degree of consciousness, you realize that, my God, the vast majority of people are enlightened. Just a few poor souls, unlucky souls, trapped at the physical level of consciousness are really spiritually enlightened. It's a very different experience. Very different experience. And this is the level where you, for the first time, really need the Guru. Really need the Guru. At the waking, at the physical level of consciousness, the need for the Guru is not so critical. That's why very often it is said that the Guru does not descend beneath this point. Does not come down from it. That the physical Guru is not the Guru. The physical Guru is not that crucial in the overall scheme of things. You can, through hook or crook, get here. Some people can get here with no Guru. Of course. Because what is required to get here? Good concentration, some discipline, right? Practice will draw your attention. You come here. But it's very difficult to go beyond here without a Guru. Why? Because the experiences now that are available to you when you have developed the astral degree of consciousness are so infinitely more pleasurable than the experiences that are available to you here at the physical or the pendulum level of consciousness, that there's nowhere in the world you will go beyond that. All the heavens are at this level. You see. It is fantastic. At this level, the astral degree of consciousness, even the way you communicate is different. Here we talk to each other, right? You see? If you want to know what's going on in me, if I want to know what goes on in you, we have to kind of talk to each other. When one has the astral degree of consciousness, you develop the capacity to read each other's thoughts. It's amazing. The mode of communication is telepathy. No speaking is required. And your relationships improve 1,000% because there's no basis for misunderstanding. Where is our conflict coming from at this level? Because we don't understand each other. We don't know where each other is coming from. And then when we try to communicate where we're coming from in words always fail us because everybody has associated a different meaning and a different experience with language. You say love, you mean one thing. The other person hearing you say love means something entirely different. Hence, misunderstanding, in spite of the similarity of language, is what characterizes communications at this pendulum level. But at the astral level, it's very different because you don't have to ask nobody. You just telepathically tap in. You know it precisely. And it's so amusing because you can look into the people that on the pendulum level of consciousness, literally read their minds. It shocks them. It's so funny. They'll say, ooh, how you know that? Ooh, right? It's hilarious. It's amusing, in fact. But when you're operating from a higher degree of consciousness, you're able to have these higher conscious experiences that is available to all of us with no exception. And the experience that you have is so fantastic. Here, your movement is limited to the velocity of light. Nothing in the physical plane can travel greater than the speed of light. At the astral level, you find that nothing travels less than the speed of light. You can cross galaxies in the twinkling of an eye. It's an amazing thing. Here at this level, you can't go anywhere where this body can't go. So what are you able to know of the physical universe? Nothing. Your experiences are confined to this tiny speck of mud called the planet Earth, to what is even a smaller speck of mud on planet Earth that you call Chicago, right? This planet drifting amongst the appalling immensity of a physical universe. If you took this planet and contrasted it against the totality of the physical existence, it would appear as a hair in the ocean. This is nothing. And even on this speck of mud, your experiences are confined to just a little territory. Because why? You are restricted by your physical body, aren't you? Not so at the astral. At astral, you can travel. That's the amazing thing at the astral level of consciousness, is you find that all of your sensory systems function independent of this body, that you can see without eyes, hear without ears, walk without feet. That you have an astral body that is mobile, can move. And it can move anywhere throughout this universe. It has access to the totality of the physical universe. It's a very, very, very different experience. And now, coming into those experiences, we are so elated, so overwhelmed that now it's impossible to go anywhere else. Now the master has to really work hard with you, because you think this is it. This is heaven. There can't possibly be any experience available to human consciousness beyond this. You said no way, right? I don't want to even go any further. It is the same thing that you were just saying previously at the physical level of consciousness. At this physical level of consciousness, you are now saying that, oh, I don't want anything beyond this world. Just give me this world and leave me alone. Let me get all my stuff here. And the master said, no, there's a world beyond this physical world. And you said, no, there ain't none beyond this physical world. Just let me have my money, let me have my stuff, let me have my job. All my happiness is right here on planet Earth. I don't want, this is it. And you can't believe there's anything called a astral level of consciousness. And just as the master has trouble convincing us at this physical level to do your meditation and come into this experience that is available to you, that is infinitely more superior to this experience that you're having at the physical level. But that same degree of difficulty multiplied now, the mystic tries to take you further, has a hard time. Very hard time. And if there was no master there, because the master is also at this level. This is what a master really is. And you encounter the radiant form of the master, the light form of the master. And that light form of the master now works hard now to try to convince you. No. Bhagwan, there's more. You just getting started, right? This journey is just beginning. And I'm saying, no, Maharaji, no, master, now this is it. I don't want to, there ain't nothing beyond this. And sometimes the soul has to spend hundreds of lifetimes at this level. It takes hundreds of lifetimes to finally convince the disciple that there's something beyond. It's hard work at that level, because it's heaven. It's like paradise. Who would want to leave paradise? You don't even want to leave this world. And this ain't even close to paradise. Can you imagine if you should stumble into paradise? Now, it's no possibility. No possibility. And so the master works very hard. Actually, this is just the beginning of the journey. And the experience of reality, the experience of time and space, the experiences available to human consciousness, when one has been able to develop the astral degree of consciousness, is so extraordinary. It's really hard for me to paint you pictures of that experience with words. It's very difficult. You see, very difficult. But something has to be said. finally, if the master is able to, over a period of lifetimes, able to finally convince the disciple to again withdraw attention off of the astral body and out of the astral environment, just as he finally was able to convince us to withdraw our attention from the mental plane. Pull the attention up out of this astral body, right, into the head of the astral body, and thereby open up another level and another degree of conscious experience. Finally, when the disciple has done sadhana on the astral level, because there's sadhana on the astral level, of course, right? Much more pleasant than the sadhana here, right? But in any case, one is able to move into the causal region, what we call the causal body. In our parlance, we call it trikut. I know you got these hardcore mystics in here. They'll take me to task if I don't use technical terms. But basically, it's the causal region. Now it becomes difficult to say anything about this, really. Technically, I should quit talking. Because there's nothing, it's going to be very difficult for you to understand that there is a degree of conscious experience available to us beyond the astral. But the mystics show us and give us the ability to have those conscious experiences. And at the causal region, again, how do I put it? Again, the experience of time, space, and reality gets radically shifted. Remember, at the astral degree of conscious experience, you're able to freeze time, hold it, suspend it. At the causal level, you are able to move forward and backward on the timeline. It's an amazing experience. You are able to move forward in time, backward in time, and pick up any experience that you like laying along the timeline. It's an extraordinary thing. If there's an experience that you're not particularly enjoying, you just go for it. Done with it. You need not sweat through it. You understand? You can see how that's useful in the Ra. She's nodding her head, right? If it's some unpleasant experience going on, you just fast forward, zoom, and you go. It's amazing. If there's an experience that you particularly enjoyed in the past, you just rewind and go back. And it's not like memory. At the pendulum level of consciousness, memory mimics that function. Where you remember the good old days and you get a little experience. No. At the causal region, you actually re-experience it. Not through memory. Actually re-experience it. For as long as you like. And then you can fast forward. Or you can suspend it. Whatever you like. It's a very, 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 very different experience. It's hard to explain it. What it's like. At the astral level, where the communication was telepathic, the communication between beings at the causal level who have attained a causal degree of conscious experience is not even through telepathy. No thinking is required. It is direct perception. It's an amazing thing because at this causal level, you discovered that what we were calling individual minds was fragments of one mind. You are able to locate within universal mind. The contents of all minds are contained in the universal mind. And at the causal level, you're able to tap directly into the universal mind. No need to talk. Not even for telepathy. Knowledge is very different. It's wrong to say you acquire knowledge. It's just intuitive. You simply know through an act of will, whatever you want to know. I want to know this, done. Nothing else is required. It's an amazing experience. It's an amazing experience. It's hard to put this into words. Time is very different. Reality is very different. Your whole experience of reality is very different. totally shift, totally altered. Space is very different. It is an amazing thing. It is an amazing thing. But now when we are in that state, when we come to this level of trikuti, when we come to this causal level, and we call it causal because we've discovered that all events are contained and originates from here. And that at the astral level, this is just a projector through which this film is ran, and that this it is shown on the screen called the physical plane. It is amazing. All events, all things that are to happen, all possibilities, you begin to see are already the case. You see the potential origin of everything. It's a very different thing. Even the sense of seeing, touching, tasting, smelling are all coalesced, encapsulated into the experience of direct perception. You need not divide experience into the various sensory systems. It all becomes just one faculty. It's an amazing thing. All events are there. Anything you want to know is there. Anything. Everything that you want to know. Everything that's going to happen is there. You have tapped into the origin and source of all phenomena at your fingertips. It's an extraordinary experience. It is here that the experience of omniscience occurs. That quality, that characteristic of God that was buried in you, dormant in you. When I say that God is dormant in you, what am I really saying? I am saying that dormant in each and every one of us is the capacity for omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence. These are the chief characteristics of God that all religions use. Is that right? These things, these qualities begin to blossom in you. And when you come to the causal level, they blossom, they are manifested. And this omniscience is there. You know everything, you can know anything you want. It's quite an experience. It's almost impossible to put this into words. And when the disciple is brought here by the master, now, finally, the disciple said, finally, good job you have. Thank you. In fact, he touched the master's feet and said, thank you so much. Man, I'm so glad you was here. Cause if you hadn't have been here, I would have never came here. Thank you so much. But John, you can go. Your work is done. You see? Because the disciple feel there is nothing beyond this thing. No way possible. All of those dormant qualities that you have been ascribing to the deity, to God, become manifest in you. You see? There is nothing beyond this here. This is it. You have hit the cradle, the very core, the very place from which all creation emerged. And there is nothing beyond this point. You are convinced. And now the master task is made even more difficult. It's almost impossible to take you from here. Almost literally impossible. It really is. Millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of lifetime has to be spent at this level. No way. No way. Very difficult. Very difficult to go beyond it. In fact, it's very difficult to even talk beyond this point because this is the level of the mind. Once we leave here, you won't even have any capacity to conceptualize. The mystics, therefore, they don't even talk about it. How can you put it into words? Now, this is impossible. But still, we're going to try to say something. But remember, I am now actually attempting the impossible. I'm telling you, it's impossible for me to say anything about this. It was really technically impossible to say anything about this. Somehow we managed to say something, right? Whether we will be fortunate enough to talk about the next degree of conscious experience that becomes available to the person who has mastered meditation. The fourth degree, the fourth stage, the fourth level of conscious experience. It's what we call the level of the soul. the pure spiritual level. Okay? The spiritual level. But in our it's called Dashwan. The region of Dashwan. Purely spiritual region. But Lord, what can I say about the experience that souls have when they reach Dashwan?
Wonder, wonder, wonder.
It's impossible. Now it's really getting hard. Now it really becomes difficult. Because I am talking about a degree of conscious experience that is outside of time itself. It's hard for you to understand that we have the capacity to have experience independent of the coordinates of time and space. Timeless experience. Hard to understand that. At the causal level, in the astral level, time moved linearly. Here, all time is condensed into one moment. One moment of timeless time contained all time. It's hard to understand this. At the causal level, you can move forward and backward, but you have to move. Here, at the level of Dashwan Da, at this degree of conscious experience, no movement on the time scale is required. In a single moment, one moment contains all eternity, all possibilities, all time is condensed into this timeless time called eternity. All space, before you had to move to pick up experiences that were located in space and time. Here, no movement. You need not move through space anymore. You become still. No movement. No nothing. At this level, the soul has fully manifested now all of those dormant qualities of God. Without movement, it is everywhere present. With no movement, it is omnipresent. All powerful. It can create any experience that it wants out of this moment. It's a strange experience. It's a devastating experience. Hard to describe this experience. I cannot say this with words. So I don't even know why I'm trying to talk about this thing here. You know? I don't even know what can be said about this thing here. But I'm trying to say something. You see? You begin to see that there was no objective reality in the first place. There was never any others. You begin to see the illusion and the deception of the multiplicity of souls. And through your sadhana at this level, you're finally able to go to the next level. You see. I don't know what to call it. You see. Bhagwan Gufa. I know you all can't see this, but it doesn't matter. Right? See through me. Go astral on me. Bhagwan, in just a moment, Mensa. Bhagwan Gufa, the next degree of conscious experience that you move into. Where now you find out that there is no other entity having experience but me. Whereas before it seems that there was other people having experiences. You see, there are no other people. That all experience is being had by oneself. Just as we talked about the universal mind, and that universal mind is the mind of everybody, each of you are plugged into the universal mind. That's all. There's one mind having experience through a variety of vehicles. One mind. And that one mind collects all of the experiences that we are having individually, or so it appears that we are having individually. Into this one mind goes Avia experience, goes Kiba experience, goes Mensa, goes Sanra, goes Andrew, goes Desiree, goes everybody in this room, everybody on this planet, everybody in creation. Experiences are picked up and stored at this universal mind level. And when you tap into that, you know therefore everything. Similarly, the soul, the experiencer, is one. And that one experiences the self. At this level, you begin to understand, Ahambra Sohang, I am God. You realize the essential identity of your being with the being that you have been calling God. The distinction between the object and the observer of the object melts. The knower and the known fuse into a single seamless experience. There's no language for this. There's absolutely no language for this. And now, the time that has been spent at this region before the Guru could convince you that there's still more on this journey. Now you understand the difficult role that the Guru has to play. How are you going to take a soul at this level of God beyond that? What do you say to that soul? How do you induce that soul? What do you do? The task is almost impossible. It's almost impossible. At all of the lower level, the Guru's only weapon was love, because on the path there's only love. You can only use love to pull a soul higher. But at this point, now you can't even use that. For the first time, violence is introduced. The master must force you beyond this point. There's no way that you will, of your own will and volition, move beyond this point at all. For the first time, force is used. Sheer force, sheer power to go beyond this Bhagwan into the next level. The level that we have called Sat Nam. Now truly there is nothing to say. Truly there is nothing to say. But I shall try to say something, but not anything that can come out of this mouth. All I can do is talk to some other part of you now. What I have to say about the degree of conscious experience that we call Satnam can only be said silent. So those who can hear my silence, then listen while I tell you a tale. Those who cannot hear my silence, okay, what can I do? And so we hit the journey. What could be said, I have said. What could not be said, I have said in silence. Now, is there any questions that you have?
Let me go back to you had talked and mentioned this numerous occasions about oneness, and you had made a comparison about like the drop of water that emerged back into the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Where would that fit in there?
This experience of the oneness of what we call the totality of consciousness. This experience of totality is the experience that is available at the fourth degree of conscious experience, at the fourth level of conscious experience.
Between 3 and 4?
It's that really, it begins at 3, matures at 4, where you begin to have the experience of the totality of consciousness. You see, what happens is that when one is able to begin to pick up the experiences that are available to human consciousness that lie outside of the limitations of time and space, what you realize, what you taste for the first time, is that you can have all experiences at all levels simultaneously. It's really quite a thing. It's really quite a thing. Is that all, and you actually, it's wrong to say higher experience, because the higher experience it means a lower experience, right? Higher means that there must be something lower down here, right? And let's say we're calling this 4 and 2 and 3, 2, 1, etc. But when we talk about this total conscious experience, we're talking about all of these experiences are contained in total conscious experience. All of them. From the lowest all the way up to the high, all of that is contained in this higher consciousness. There is simply a consciousness of oneness. The experience of individuation drops out. The experience of being separate from the experience of being an ego, an entity that is separate from other entity, that whole experience drops out. The experience of only oneself. All that you've been calling the other is discovered to be yourself. There is no other. It is all things that you've been calling things are nothing but different expressions of yourself. This whole creation is nothing but an expression of yourself. At the level of Satnam, we can't even say that. Even that drops out. But this last illusion, Missa, is the illusion of individuation, and that experience is dropped out. And these become the kinds of experiences that take place as we make progress on this journey within consciousness. Consciousness, you have to understand, is a very different thing. This body of ours is just like a receptor. Through this body you hear my consciousness. My consciousness is not in this body. It's being picked up by this body, like a radio picks up radio signals. And then you listening to the radio, and only the most naive person actually think the music is being made inside the radio. We all are sophisticated enough to understand that this radio is a receptor. It is simply broadcasted. The same is the case with you. That essence that you are is not even in that body. That body is nothing but a receptacle, a transformer, a broadcast package through which the real Florida is broadcasted. It's an extraordinary thing. One has to experience it. It's quite a different thing. When the saints and mystics have gone deep into these, then they just become silent. They become what we call munis. Munis. Silent. Nothing can be said. Just silence. How do you describe that experience? It's impossible. So these are things, Mister, that we have to go inside to experience. And today what I wanted to do was give you a big picture. I wanted to show you what you are missing in your clinging. You see, you're clinging you're clinging to this little experience. You're holding on to this little experience. I want you to begin to see what you're missing. certainly you should become open to these higher experiences. These higher experiences. You want to know. You see, Minister, we in this world, come into this world, what is it that we need to know? We need to know the truth about reality. Right? Because each of us have formulated our own concept of what is real. And what you're calling real is not real. Between reality and you, the perceiver of reality, lies this ego. And the self cannot encounter reality through ego. This has to get out of the way so that you can have a direct experience of reality. And when you have that direct experience with reality, you begin to see that reality and self are synonymous terms. It is the ego that gets in the way. And that is one of the tasks, to really know what's real. Really. Have you thought about it? What is real? What is the truth about reality? What is really real? And what is the truth about you? Because we are identified with our image of ourselves. And it's the image of ourselves that we call it real. But that's just your image. And that is false. That is pseudo. That is phony. It has no reality. It's make-believe. It is Maya. It is mythology. Stuff you have created, heard. You understand? It's not who you are. And that is the thing you're clinging to. And then you call upon God and say, God, please help me. This ego done really screwed my life up. This ego done blew my marriage, blew my jobs, blew my this. Ooh, help me. And the Lord said, let go of the ego. And then you said, Lord, I'm not prepared to let go of the ego. Now, if you're going to help me, you understand, you're going to have to do what my ego tells you to do. Right? Otherwise, you can't help me. That's right. Back to dilemma.
It's hard.
Yes. Meditation dissolves the ego. That's why it is so frightening. Meditation is taken, as Kabir Sahib says, a sword in our hands and beheading ourselves. Meditation is like a suicide almost to the ego. And the ego does not want to die. The ego wants to go to heaven. No ego ever go to heaven. You see, it can't go. The ego will perish. Yes, ma'am.
What is the sound terms beautiful music that they talk about in the book? Where does that come from? What level is that?
That percolates all the way down from the level of self. The self makes sound, what we call shabbat. And it is ultimately by focusing the attention on the source of consciousness. Because what is the source of consciousness? Have you ever thought? From where does consciousness come? What is the source of consciousness? Where is its root set? By focusing our attention on the sound of the self, we're actually able to, for the first time, experience this through sound. Through sound. And so this Shabbat practice, the Shabbat yoga we call it, you see, is that part of meditation where we're able to focus our attention on the sound. And really the sound is an entity. It's really not a sound in the sense that we do. It's conscious sound. If you can, I'm talking beyond mind. So there's no way even to imagine conscious sound. But when we talk about Shabbat, Shabbat is a conscious sound. It is the life force itself. And it pulls. When you hear the Shabbat, you actually feel yourself being pulled out of the body. You see, you feel like you're being vacuumed up, swooped up, pulled out of your body. Right? That is Shabbat that's pulled. So Pam, it's very difficult. I apologize for failing you, but you understand. What can I say? All I can point and answer, the only way I can answer is to tell you, If you really want to know the answer to that, sit in meditation. You see, sit in meditation, and there's an experience that will answer those questions.
Bhagwan, the other
Yes,
question
sister.
that I've had for a while, and this is a perfect opportunity to ask you.
Of course.
I recall you saying, I think several times, that enlightened beings like Buddha and Jesus want to get this body. Why would they want to get this body when they can experience these higher worlds?
Buddha, Jesus are astral level beings. When you go there, you will see millions of Buddhas, millions of Jesuses, millions of Muhammad's.
They're no higher than the
No.
astral level?
This journey is very different. All world religions have their origin out of astral beings. People who have attained the astral degree of consciousness are the founders of all these world religions. You see? And when the master go through those regions, you see, literally millions of these beings are following the master. Here the master can barely get 5 or 6 people. If the master go further and further up, more and more, because they know who this master is. We don't know who the master is. We project our own concept onto the masters. We don't know. But these higher beings know, you see. And the only way they can get initiation from this master, you see, is that they got to come to the place where that master is at. They got to go get a physical body. That's the way he's doing his work. You see. He's not initiating any souls off of these levels. The master does not take souls off of the astral level. Does not take souls away from the causal level. That's all. Takes exclusively souls from this level. And therefore, if you want to come in contact with a living master, you have to get a human body. Hence the Buddhas, hence the Mahavirs, and all of these founders of world religions desire to have a human body, not just like you want a human body to go to movies and sex it up. Their desires are different. Their desire for a human body is to meet a living master. No other desire. Period. You see. Because there's all the pleasure in the world on the astral level. Who in their right mind will come back down to this thing? You see. Except to come in contact with a living master. That's the only purpose.
I assume that Jesus had come in contact with the living master.
Yes, there's many degrees of living masters.
Okay.
You see. There's many degrees of living masters. So, it depends on the level of attainment of that master. A master cannot take you further than the master themselves have gone. That's why very often you'll find in many different religious traditions that they don't really talk about things beyond that. You won't hear much talk about Shabbat. Because those founding mystics of that spiritual system had not any experience of Shabbat. You see. That's all. So that won't be reflected in their teachings.
So was Jesus not as high a caliber?
He was higher than us. That's enough. That's all we need to know, right?
Okay.
Right? You'll be doing good if you can get to the level of a Jesus. Trust me. Trust me. Trust me. Most of us barely can make it to the level of a human being. Right? IG always say, first become a good human being. You see? Then we can worry about the rest later. Yes, sister?
Yes, Bhagwan.
Yes.
How many levels actually is it?
Now, how do I answer that question? Who would
Say
try for me?
24. Say 24
Somebody
is
try
the
to answer
levels.
that. Well, you see, sister, this is just an artificial way of talking about this subject. You see, when we talk about, some system will talk about 8 levels. Some will talk about 16. Some will talk about 24. The point is that they're trying to somehow convey to us the reality that there are different degrees of conscious experience. You see. And they're calling each of these degrees of conscious experience like levels. It's like on a radio. There's many stations, all right? Each station picks up radio waves being broadcast from various places, right? And you may have a radio that have 12 channels or something. You see? It depends on the model that you're using to talk about this. But that model that we're using to talk about it itself is misleading. It's not accurate. Because fundamentally, we're trying to discuss something that cannot technically be discussed in words. It cannot even be confined to mind. Mind, therefore, can never understand it. How can mind understand that which is beyond the mind? It's like trying to think of what was it like before time started. Trying to think of what there was before there was something. The mind collapses in this effort because it cannot conceive by its own limitation. So the mystics, you see, sister, all of them have just used different models, you see. In this model here, I've talked about 5. Actually, there's, in the tradition that out of which I was initiated, there's really 8. Even above Satnam, there's 3 more degrees of conscious experience available in human consciousness that the mystics have called Agama Anami. But I said so much in my periods of silence. So those of you who heard my silence know the answer to these things, right?
No, that's not.
I better stick to words, right?
Yeah.
Be on the safe side. So the reality, you see, there's just consciousness. Very different. So let us take our break, and then we'll return at 3, and then we will continue, and we'll begin to talk a little bit more about these. All right. Now, let us continue where we left off. We said so much now about the giving you some description, however inadequate that description was, of what you will encounter in terms of deeper and higher spiritual experiences when we are able to shift the focus of consciousness from this wakeful level into deeper and higher points within our being. A story. The young man is standing on the side of the road, excitedly describing this new book on the science of agriculture to this farmer. And he's telling the farmer how great this book is, how this book contains all of the knowledge that the farmer would possibly need to know in order to maximize his efficiency as a farmer. The book would tell him when to sow, when to read. It has a schedule of the weather, what he can expect to be the weather on this particular day, when it will rain, and all of these things. And of course, all of the scientific techniques that the new research into agricultural science has made available to mankind. And as he's going through his spiel, on this exciting new book of knowledge, the farmer interrupts him and says, "Brother," he says, "that's not the problem." The young man said, "Well, what's the problem?" He said, "Well, the problem is not that my lack of knowledge. I know all this stuff. The problem is I'm too lazy to do any of it." This is our problem. The mystics have set forth the entire spectrum of the mystic methodology by which we are able to shift the focus of our attentions into the interiority of first this physical body, opening up into higher levels of conscious experience. They have provided us with detailed information about this journey. The problem is we don't do it. And as we said at the top of the discussion today, that the problem we have is that we can't let go. And therefore that becomes the real issue. Letting go. Surrender. Giving up the ego's desire to be in absolute control. And we really are not able to get results in our meditation until we're able to achieve some degree of detachment from this ego. And that is the whole aim and objective of the first stage of spiritual practice at this pendulum level. The whole aim and objective of the master is somehow to break our hold on our egos. And the more the master hammers, the more we clean. And this goes on so long. The mystics say very often that it sometimes takes 4 of these physical lives just to break our grip on the ego. I want you to understand it's not a small thing. This ego is very difficult for us to give up at this level. It is the only point by which we're able to have some sense of identity. And so naturally, when we have the challenge to relinquish our grip on this ego, we fight and we kick and we scream. But this is the real task that confronts us as students of spirituality, as co-travelers, co-seekers on this path. And that somehow or another we're going to have to help each other. Because the reality is that all we got is each other. You see? That is the beauty of being a part of a community of seekers, of a fellowship of seekers. One of my great joys is just to hear you all laughing and interacting and crying on each other's shoulders. I'm glad you've given the excuses to each other and not worrying me with that stuff. But that is the whole function of our association with each other, to be a source of inspiration and to help each other let go. And meditation, as you all know, is the ultimate form of surrender. So, this business of letting go, this business of meditation, none of us would be able to even be here today had it not been for a guru somewhere. Whether that guru impacted me or Bilal or somebody else does not matter. Because there's these gurus, you see, that give us the inestimable gift of initiation. And normally we don't understand what initiation is. So since we talked some about the inner journey, should we talk something about initiation? Because we have to understand that initiation is a tremendous phenomenon. It is a tremendous gift. Initiation is the bestowing upon us of the methods by which we are able to release ourselves from these lower states of conscious experience. And the initiation, therefore, is the greatest boon that God can confer upon us as human beings, is to come into initiation. And what does initiation mean? Initiation means letting go. Initiation means that you're finna start a new kind of living. When one subjects oneself to the process of initiation, it means that when the Lord said, let go, you are willing to let go. You see? That is what initiation means. It doesn't mean anything else. Initiation doesn't mean that now you are going to be privy to a lot of secret knowledge. Initiation doesn't mean that something magic is going to happen and that somehow or another that your ego is going to be made more polished, more powerful, that you're going to find some secret aid by which the ego can now achieve all of its objective. It is not an empowering of the ego. It is a letting go of the ego. It is our willingness to let go of the ego. So this is the turning point for us. Yet, many of us receive initiation. And we don't take advantage of it during the lifetime of the Master. And this is the truth. Very rarely will you find the disciple who fully takes advantage of the lifetime of a living teacher. That almost never happens. Just think today, 2 billion Christians, you see, who are crying tears and gnashing of teeth, feeling that if only they could have been there with the Jesus, how their life would have been so different. But those disciples that was there with Jesus, what did they do with their initiation? You see? Those disciples that was there with these great gurus, what did they do? We are like that, you see. Such is the weakness in human nature. And so very often it is said that the disciple really does not make progress until the guru leaves the physical body. Now I know this is a strange saying, because on the one hand they say that without the company of a living teacher, you don't make progress on the path. And then in the next breath they say that you only really make real spiritual progress when the guru is gone. And of the two statements, my personal experience have been the latter, that you really don't get serious on this path until the guru is gone. Because then, for the first time, you are cognizant of the role that the guru was playing in it. So, the best that we can do is to try to take advantage. Jesus says you must walk while there is light in the world. Jesus says that when I am gone, nobody can come through. The mystics are telling us the same thing. So don't make the mistake that so many of us have made. I have tried to communicate the teachings to you from my own experience, trying to warn you of some of the pitfalls, trying to caution you not to make some of the same mistakes that I've made, wherever that is possible. Of course, I know that each of us are going to make our own mistakes. But the greatest mistake that can be made on this pathway is to not take advantage of it while we're here. It is a tremendous loss. And when you don't know what it's like when your guru is no longer on the planet. You can't conceive of that. You know what it's like when you lose a loved one. You know what it's like when a daughter dies or a husband dies or something of that nature. But when the guru is gone, you see, you don't understand the sense of hopelessness that overcomes the disciple. And so we don't know how long these situations remain the way they are. So if you have initiation and you have the opportunity to have these satsangs, you should take every advantage of it and not waste time. You should be meditating, and then if you have problems and barriers that you're running into in your meditation, those should be resolved now. No book is going to resolve it. You can't ask books any questions. So we have all been lucky, you see, to have received this gift of initiation, and we have to do everything possible to take full advantage of it. Now, we processed a lot of things today. I want to leave some time for us to go into open discussion of it, because I've said a lot today. We talked about the journey within. We talked a little bit about the role of the guru, you see. And we can only talk a little bit about it, because if it's difficult to talk about the stages of consciousness available in human experience, imagine it's even more difficult to talk about a being that actually makes those things possible for us. Nothing can be said, you see. There's too much to ask any person to speak on. But I've tried today to share a little of everything with you. Now, we can open up for discussion on anything that might have been discussed today or at any of the previous 8 sessions. Next session, we'll start summarizing everything. The thing to focus on now, for those of you who want to go in, is meditation. You got to do the meditation. You got to let go. You got to let go. You see, and let God. You have to do that. There is no other way. So let's talk some now about meditation and all these other things. Or I'll keep talking and I guarantee I'll bore you to death. Huh? Now you have a choice. Yes, sister.
In my own life, I'm wondering why does it take me so long to actually let go? You see, can you kind of go into that for me?
Attachment. You see, we all have attachment. What is attachment? Normally we conceive of attachment as a possessive relationship to material things. I'm attached to my car, I'm attached to my house, I'm attached to this, I'm attached to that. But fundamentally, attachment is something very different. Attachment occurs whenever we have incorporated anything into the basis of our self-identity. Whenever we have annexed to our identity things, we become attached to those things. Now, when my car is a part of my identity, I become attached. Right? When the car is incorporated into my ego. When the house is incorporated into my ego. When the person that I'm in relationship or in the status that my relationship with that person confer upon me, when that is all incorporated into my ego material, then we become attached. And why is it so hard to give up attachment? Because it feels like you're giving up a part of yourself. We cling to these things because these things feel like us. We have interpreted them as meaning me. And so, again, the fear comes in. If I give up this, how will I live? You see, my life will suddenly become empty if I give this up. And so we cling to these things. We can't let go of it. Even more than things and people, the real attachment is to our ideals. You cling to your ideals. You cling to your knowledge. You cling to what you think is knowledge. We all have formulated this concept in our mind of how spirituality should or should not go. And we don't want to turn that loose. And so we cling and we say, is there anybody else up there? Right? Is there any other religion? Is there another path? Is there another way? Can I do this? Spiritual progress is not magical. Sister Florida, very often what we bring to the path is this magic kind of thinking. Somewhere we must have talked about magical thinking. Magical thinking is that thinking that there's some kind of magical way that our lives will be transformed. If I just get this, or if I just do that, then presto, everything is going to be all right. That's magical thinking. We carry it into business, we carry it into relationship, we carry it into everywhere. We thread in life. We deceive ourselves, right? That there's some shortcut. Magical thinking always involves some shortcut. And remember, we got all kinds of shortcuts, even to enlightenment. You got yours, Keeper, I got mine, Sandra got hers, Andrew's got his. We all have formulated a secret sadhana that is competing with the official sadhana that is coming down from these gurus and mystics. And when we look into our secret sadhanas, what are they? Other than our own editing for purposes of holding on to the things that we're attached to. Now the Guru said you have to meditate 2.5 hours ultimately at one shot. Now you start meditating. Well, let me see. Well, Bhagwan is there. What if I did 5 minutes standing on my head? Will I be able to avoid? Then I had to, no, you can't. Well, then they come back 2 weeks later. Well, what if I, what if instead of me meditating 2.5 hours, what if I meditated 10 minutes at a time, you know, and the cute, no, gotta do this. And years go by like this. Years go by like this. Well, but what if I meditate when I get ready, feel like? Cause if I'm meditating when I don't feel like it, ain't that phony? BS! BS! Well, I mean, because it's almost hard to penetrate because now you throw up this mythology, right? Well, you know, I only want to do it if I'm really loyal and true to it. If we're going to wait until you're sincere, we'll be waiting till the end of time. How are you going to be sincere about this? You've never been sincere about anything in your life. So the master said, okay, do it even though you're insincere. Do it. Slowly, they have to counter all of our arguments and our excuse making. You see? And what is these excuses? Excuse making is nothing more than that fundamental clinginess. That unwillingness to let go of our resistance to reality. And we in the whole task that the master have, at the tender level, at the level of initiation, as we understand initiation. Because real initiation doesn't even occur at the physical plane, to be honest with you. Real initiation takes place here. When the soul, when the attention is brought here, that is where real initiation happens. This outward initiation is something that is done to motivate you, because you need to have a sense of initiation. So you see, Sister Florida, we all cling up, because we all are attached. And we just have to let go. That we cannot prepare to let go. As long as you're preparing to let go, you'll never let go. You will be in a state of preparation forever. You simply have to let go. And for that, a great act of faith is required. A great act of trust is required. And that is the only way. There is no other way. You can't think yourself into a let go state. The very thinking will perpetuate the clinging, right? There'll never be a time when now you're ready to let go. That don't happen. You must let go in the midst of all of that terror and all that trauma. You must completely relinquish this quest for certitude. You want to be certain about your outcome. Well, I'm going to do this 2.5 hours of meditation a day minimally, but I got to be certain that I'm going to hit this region, that region, that region, this region. Give me some guarantee, we ask the gurus. You know, I need some certainty here. No. Even in the midst of uncertainty, you must let go. Yeah? And that is the hardest part, is your sister.
That's my answer.
That's your answer. You can't be certain. It's a big problem. We all are confronted with that. Yes, ma'am.
Bhagwan, what is the role of silence in helping an individual to transform? I recall reading somewhere that if you stop talking, just stop talking, that your mind will slow down. And in that silence, you can evolve and you can become a little better at whatever it is that you're doing wrong. What is the wrong?
Well, you know, Pam, the mystics say that there are some fundamental archetypes that shapes all psyche. One is eating less, sleeping less, talking less, and a fourth that very often is included is isolation, solitude, practicing solitude. The talking less, you have to understand, when you talk, it takes a lot of energy to talk. To talk requires an externalization of attention. That energy, that attention that is utilized in this process of talking is energy that otherwise could be deployed to listen. Very hard to talk into listening. And this quality of listening is the quality, is the aspect of attention that has to be developed to a very high degree. Because attention functions primarily through listening. You pay attention through listening. When you wish to pay attention to a thing, you listen. And the more you talk, the less energy you have for listening. Hence, you don't hear anything. Hence, you don't pay any attention and you don't learn anything. Hence, no communication. So we have to develop this quality of consciousness, the faculty and consciousness that listens. And by reducing the conversation, reducing needless talk, we're able to now shift that energy that was being expended in useless talk into now listening. When they asked Rabbi Deber Chentov the same question, he already says to the seeker who was asking him. They asked the question, said, well, I've heard so much about this talking and how talking is injurious and interferes with spirituality and all this here. How do I know when I'm talking too much? Right? Seemed like a legitimate question, right? And the old Baal Shem Tov said that you're talking too much if you're saying anything without people asking you a question. Then you're talking too much. You should only talk when asked a question. The point he was making, of course, is that we should become very cognizant of the amount of energy that is just wasted in frivolous conversations. Right? And it's this silence now. You see, in this silence you can hear this chatter. Now remember, this chattering is going on in our head, isn't it? All the time. This chattering, right? This talking, continuously. It is this chattering that we call thinking, right? And when we listen to this chattering that is going on in the stream of consciousness that we call thinking, right? This chattering, this thoughts, this endless flow of thoughts, right? When we are thinking, we are paying attention to them. And in our paying attention to them, we actually convert these thoughts into things. First at a chemical level in the brain, right? We metabolize, if you will, our thoughts into chemicals, and chemicals then into the body and all this other thing, ultimately into actions, right? Then when we act, that action produces a memory, right? Out of memory comes desires. Then out of desire comes more actions. You see how the cycle goes? And so we get caught up in this thing. The ideal of becoming quiet, I mentioned before the Muni, the yogi that practices silence. They're quiet inside. And they're not listening to the chatter. What they're aiming for is to focus their attention between the thoughts. There's a space between thoughts. And that is where you're trying to put your attention. Because between the thoughts, you're there. Something is thinking the thought. Where are the thoughts coming from? Who's thinking the thoughts? Have you ever thought about it? Who thinks the thoughts? That is the self. Isn't that right? And between thoughts, there's a space, isn't it? And in that space is the realization. So through this silence, you see, you're actually able to find that gap. You listen closer. It's just as one thought goes out, now you're able to shift that attention into the gap between thoughts. So it becomes automatic when we do our meditation, you see. That's the whole idea. When we're sitting and you are repeating the mantra, when you're doing your japa, you see, what are you doing? You're getting outside of these thoughts. The thoughts about your car and your job and all of this. This japa is filling up this. This japa is planted in between thoughts. And by holding the attention on the japa, you're actually sandwiching yourself between two thoughts. You see? And that is the whole task. Then the difficulty is, you and I know, Pam, is that it's hard to do this, isn't it? The moment we take our attention off one complex of thoughts, it drifts right back into them. And it's this constant pulling it back, pulling it back, pulling it back that goes on. And very often it wears us down. We tend to get discouraged because it seems endless. The mind generates approximately 75 thoughts a day. That's about average. Some of you guys are way over average. Y'all way above quota, okay? But normally, the about 75,000 different thoughts or thought sets will run through your thinking process during the hours of wakefulness.
You talk about everything existing on a cycle. So the mind naturally takes a cycle break when you sleep. Does the mind have any other periods during the day when it would automatically sort of slow down? Periods that you could sort of seek out so you could, get this time where you're being able to slip into this gap and
That makes it a little easier.
Yeah.
Well, of course, sometimes you see, when you come up out of susuk, when you come up out of deep sleep, right? particularly in the morning time, your day has not started. So there's not a lot of things that start that cycle again. And those have invariably been the best times because there are fewer thoughts. Now remember, a lot of the thoughts you think of today are the same old thoughts you were thinking yesterday. It's not like you keep thinking new thoughts. You're working on the same old material. Yesterday you were worried about how much money you're going to make. The day before that you were worried about that. And tomorrow you'll be worried about that. Yesterday you were worried about some problems in this area of your life, and today you're worried about that, and the next day you're worried about that. It is almost as if we are obsessing over and over again, trying to solve the same set of problems for your whole life. But the interesting thing is that a lot of that stuff has not yet resurfaced and re-entered into consciousness as you come up out of Sasuke, right? So you have a chance now. It's a better time. It doesn't mean that there's no force coming. That's not the case. They're coming. But the time of elixir, when you're just coming out of Sasuke, early morning, right? That gives you an advantage. By 12 o'clock, your mind is well into its quota of 75,000 voices, and it's just hard. You know? In fact, you get so tired that you have to go back to sleep. Have you ever noticed that most of us, around about noontime, we almost about to pass out, right? Because, you done wore down yourself. That mind says, man, I got to get me some more soup, right? I got to get me some sleep, cause you understand? It's gotten tired. And so if you're fortunate enough to be able to take a little siesta, around 12 or 1 o'clock, and let that mind get some rest, then again, when you come out of that, you know what I mean? You're a little fresher, The mind is ready to do some more stuff, right? So there are times, yes, man, that are a little easier for this practice.
But they vary from person to person.
It can vary from person to person.
Everybody has a different biorhythm.
Everybody has a different biorhythm, so it can vary from person to person. And the task is to find that time that is best suited for you. And once you find that time, master that time. Because when you do your meditation every day at the same time, you change your biorhythm. You can do that. If your biorhythm is let's say, at 1 o'clock at night you're wide awake, or at 3 o'clock in the morning you're so sleepy you're walking in the wall. If you get up at 3 o'clock for 6 months, you will actually change your biorhythm, and you won't need no alarm clock. At 3 o'clock you wake up fresh. This is all a matter of condition. You see my point? And so if one has pinpointed a time in their schedule, in their circumstances, that lends itself best to meditation, when there's not children around, when the world and your responsibility are not pressing on you and all these other things, then you can train yourself. You can reprogram your biorhythm. It's done every day. That is why the mystics put all the emphasis on regularity and punctuality and consistency. You see, we have got to do that, because that is how we reprogram the software of the biorhythms in the body. And we make new associations. And so then you will be wide awake at 3 o'clock, if that's the time you like. You see. So you have to incorporate a lot of factors into it. But you're right, there are differences among us based upon how our body rhythms have already been conditioned. Now, we've been watching Johnny Carson for 30 years. You know what I mean? This you see, we have to fight with that. We have to fight with that. We have so many activities, and that's the whole problem. We cling to those. Yes, we want to do meditation, yes, but not if it means going to bed 2 hours early. Because we've been conditioned, and we cling to this. I have got to watch that show until it go off. I got to watch me a late night movie every night. It's not that I don't want to do it, but I can't let this go. And letting go of a television show, you'll be amazed. There's people that can't meditate because they are attached to television program. I'm telling you the truth. Right? They cannot relinquish their groove. They're clinging to a television show. They're attached. It's amazing. And all of these disciplines that the Master gives us, you see, are things that require us to let go of certain things in our life. You can't follow the sadhana without letting go of certain things in your life. You cannot shape your life according to the teachings of the saints without letting go of stuff in your life. It's not possible. That is the challenge. And meditation is difficult for us to the extent that we are clinging to these patterns of behavior that has already been established. And that's the first struggle. The first struggle is with yourself at the habitual level. You see, Satan ain't doing nothing to you. Satan ain't even worried about you. You understand? I mean, you ain't got a chance getting out of here. Why should Satan be worried about you? The devil is not concerned with what you do. The devil might be worried about a Jesus or a Buddha or a Mahavira, yes. Because these people are right on the threshold, yes. But Satan ain't worried about you. He got you. Where you going? Right? You're no threat. Right? So, you know, they don't start worrying about you until you way up there. Right? Where we ain't got to worry about it. Your mind got you. You see, you can't conquer your own mind. You can't conquer that habitual part of yourself. You can't let that go. And it's difficult. I don't mean to poo-poo it. It is a difficult thing, but this is the reality that confronts all of us, you see. That is the sacrificing, isn't it? That's the surrendering. That is the surrendering. And you'd be surprised how many of the barriers to meditation are just rooted in our clinging to preferences just that are related to this body. Now, I don't want to give up the comfort of that bed at 4 o'clock in the morning. You understand? It feels good. Man, I'm sleeping good. It's warm. I'm cozy. And you don't want to let go of this coziness. You see? Yeah, you know it's time to meditate. Yeah. But, man, there's some good sleep. Right? And you can't let this go. It's hard. Yes, it's hard. If it wasn't, every Tom, Dick, and Harry could do it. But this is the letting go that has to happen. And even in this kind of chattering, sometimes your thinking is goal-oriented. Notice all thinking is goal-oriented. Please make a note of that. Those of you who have gone with me through the anger workshop, one of the things I pointed out to you is that all behavior has a goal. Is that right? It has a purpose behind behavior. Behavior does not occur in a vacuum. You see, it is aimed at a particular goal. And if behavior is derivative of thinking, then it only stands to reason that thinking itself generates the original goal, that the behavior later reflects, you see. And the goal of thinking is what? The goal of thinking is you are continuously thinking of how you can manipulate events, circumstances in such a way to remain in control. The goal of your thinking is control. Is that right? You want to be in control. And you're constantly thinking of ways to stay in control or get back in control. Constantly thinking of ways to prevent something bad from happening to you and perpetuating that which you feel is good to keep it going. And that becomes the goal of your thinking. And this goal has to be dropped before the thinking drops. This releasing your grips on this need to be in control has to be let go. What is the reality? Is that there is no such thing as absolute control. We've been trying it all our life. We're trying to control. And control absolutely. This is madness. We call it playing God. You're trying to be in absolute control of the events that will flow into you. And this is fundamentally impossible. And you have to let go of that goal. And you have to surrender. You really have to surrender. Does that mean you cease putting forth effort? Absolutely not. Like a good karma yogi, you put forth the effort, but you leave the results in the hands of God. You understand? No matter how much effort I put forth, there is no guarantee that my outcome will be like this. No way. Yes?
In meditation,
Mm.
it seems like the longer I'm doing it now, like the time is fine. But sometimes during that time I meditate and talk about the silence where it's quiet. But this here is like busy. I mean, it's so busy sometimes. I almost feel frustrated. But one thing what I start doing is that at least I give myself credit for
Being present.
the body. You know, the
Body.
body is not
Yeah.
feeling that you know, the numbness that I was feeling like
Yes.
maybe a month ago. But the mind, it seems to be busier than it was in the beginning.
You just are more aware of the mind. Actually, you made enough progress to see enough now to see how fast that mind was going. Before, you didn't have enough awareness to see it. That's all. We also, Tony, have the experience of getting worse on the path. When we come on the path and we start meditating, it looks like all kinds of crap come up, right?
Yeah, right.
It's not that that's anything new. We were always like this. It's just that we did not have enough self-awareness to perceive it. We begin through meditation to become very conscious of all the garbage and filth in us. It was there all the time. It's just that we were not aware of it. And so when we discover it, it looks like we're just becoming the greatest sinners on the planet. All that lust, it was there all the time. All that greed, it was there all the time. But we had not developed sufficient self-awareness to see it. So the mind is running like that all the time. That's good. You see, just continue. Just continue. You see, just continue. So that's a happy side.
But it can be frustrating.
Well, sometimes yes, I grant you that. But ignore it running and put your mind back on your job. Because you have to be out of your job to notice it running. Ignore it and focus more on the job. Focus more on the job. Yes,
I was just thinking about what Tony said. A lot of people escape from society and go to the caves, and a lot of them still can't control their thoughts.
absolutely.
And I was going to ask you, why do the mystics put so much emphasis on the householder's life?
Householder life. Because you see, the householder life allows us to live in its context where we don't have to practice suppression. Now the reality you see is that things like lust, right? This is human. This is a part of where we are at, right? And if we ran to the cave, right, and then suppress our desire for sex and all these other things, that suppression of sex will do far more damage. Eventually, that which you have suppressed will dominate your thinking, and you will become so obsessed with it, this possibility of Joppa will drop completely out. You see, the householder situation is one of those unique contexts that we find ourselves in that gives us the ability to follow the path without having to suppress. And that is its greatest advantage. We don't have to suppress. Because in there, you're going to be managing all these things. You see? Now, in a marriage situation, now, you can't have sex every 5 minutes. It's going to become boring. Automatically, just by confining your sex to your spouse, you're going to come into a different relationship with your sexual behavior. A single person, because you can have a different woman or a different man every night. There's no end to that kind of lifestyle. But within the context of a marriage, slowly it starts adjusting itself. Very often you find after the couple has been married 10, 15, 20 years, sex diminishes. There's a certain diminishing in sex that takes place automatically anyhow when confined in this situation. Marriage therefore creates a perfect environment to incubate Satan. You see? And after one is finished with the marital state, then one is able to go to the next state. In classical yoga, they talk about 4 stages of life. You see, the stage of a student, the stage of the householder, the stage of a forest dweller, and then that of just a recluse. You see? The householder experience prepares us to move into the next higher stage, where now you're no longer concerned with all of this. There's a point that you come to in sadhana where all of the duties and responsibility that you are executing as a husband and wife drops out the picture. You're no longer, even considered a husband. You become a sayansin. That's a very different stage. Now you leave the family. In ancient times, you see, it was understood that after your oldest child has its first child, that's the end of your household. Now you're ready to move into the sayansin stage. Therefore, you would turn over all of your belongings to your eldest son or daughter or whoever your heir is. They will own the house, they will own the business, they'll own everything. You've done with all of that. And now you spend this next part of your life strictly devoted to working on yourself. Because it was understood that in the householder context, some of your sadhana was being diluted. Because some of your attention had to go to paying the bills, paying the mortgage. Some of your energy had to necessarily be applied to other things. But after the stage of householderism is over with, now there is no more dilution on your energies. Now your whole focus is on your sadhana. And the family understand, don't mess with me no more. Don't ask me no question, don't ask me to pay no bills. I'm out of all of it. Here you have my bank account, you own the house, I've transformed ownership of everything. And I am officially retired. Retired means I'm not involved in this no more. I make no decision. If somebody has a question, Bhagwan, what do I do? I don't know. Ask my son. He's the head of the household. I don't make decisions about that. My heir does that. They run the thing. You see? It's a very different relationship. You see? And the woman will go into her sayansin, because there were great female sayansins. They were right out there with the men at every turn. And the man, he will go into his sayansin. And that relationship with husband and wife was altered. They're no longer husband and wife. They are co-seekers. Very different relationship. So householderism then is a stage of development, or put it like this, it is a context in which